This time 2 years ago, I was doing everything I could, watching every video, reading every article, trying to get as prepared as possible for the AT. And that work really paid off. I felt really confident because I knew, for the most part, what to expect. Now that the class of 2025 is getting ready to head out, I thought I'd make one more in addition to the many videos I already have about the AT, but this one about what surprised me, what I didn't know ahead of time. As of now, I think I'm gonna make the title of this video, What They Don't Tell You About Hiking the AT, but I hope you know I'm just being dramatic when I say that. I don't think anyone was purposely leaving any information out. All that information I received was people remembering in general their experience. And while I was out there, I had those generalities, if that's a word, in mind, and I noticed a bit more nuance to things. The one thing that purposely I didn't look into was the difficult sections of the trail. I was like, however hard it's gonna be, that's how it's gonna be, and I don't want to psych myself up. And if I know something is going to be tough in advance while I'm there, I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so tough. As opposed to if I had no idea, then I wouldn't think it was as bad. That plan, I don't know. I see where I was coming from for sure, but I also felt blindsided sometimes. A main one being during the Whites, a mountain range in New Hampshire. I was expecting there to only be different regulations in the national parks, which are Shenandoah and Great Smoky Mountains National Park. But it turns out the Whites, I think it's a state park or a national forest, but they still have a lot more regulations. I could really make a whole nother video on this, but because it's such a popular place, you need to either pay to camp, pay to stay in a hut, or you might be able to find a camping spot, but it may not be near a source of water and it may not be an excellent location. So that really changes the logistics of the trail, makes things a little more difficult, but you'll get through it. If you want more info on the Whites, let me know. I've thought about it so much, what I would do differently. Of course, it was kind of hard to avoid the knowledge that Mahoosic Notch is known as the hardest mile on the AT. That being said, I found it pretty hard, but really a lot of New Hampshire and a lot of southern Maine required rock climbing. Not just like walking up a steep path, but really you need to put your poles down and use your hands to literally climb up or climb down, which is even harder. The north of the trail is definitely difficult, but if I remember right, there was rock scrambling all the way as far south as New York. So just be expecting that. If you have rock climbing or bouldering experience, that's probably going to come in handy. Vermont is known as Vermud because there's a lot of mud, and maybe that is the most notable place with mud, but I had wet shoes most of the way through New Hampshire and Maine too. So just be prepared for a lot of days putting on wet shoes and wet socks in the morning. In a similar vein, Pennsylvania is known as Rocksylvania, but I thought rocks made things more difficult really the whole way. Although Pennsylvania has a lot of rock piles that are hard to walk on and you kind of feel like you're going to sprain your ankle. But an important thing to note is a lot of people perceive the difficulty of something differently. Like I've seen an infographic where hikers have voted on different levels of difficulty throughout the trail, and it just shows that very rarely people feel the same way about an area. I've had people say, man, the whole trail really wasn't that bad. And I was like, oh my gosh, there were so many parts when I didn't know how I would keep going on. A lot of advice I heard said, if you are having trouble, just don't try to push yourself as hard. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a day off. That being said, there are challenges that come with going at a slower pace. I remember there was a specific time when I was in Vermont and it had rained the night before. I was trying to push myself like 20 miles for the past 2 days. For me, that's a lot. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna hike like 8 miles today. Get a late start and stop early. So there. It made it more hard for me because if I would have kept the same pace, I would have gotten done with the trail in general a lot faster. Maybe sitting here now, you're like, why wouldn't you want the trail to go on longer? It's such a good experience. While that is true, it got cold. I was worried about them shutting down, not shutting down, but like I was worried about not being able to get to Katahdin because of the snow and just the different regulations and stuff of the state park that it's in. And I guess just mentally being on the trail for longer took a toll on me. So I guess there's no good rule of thumb of when to take a break and when to be self-disciplined and keep going. If you want to go fast, you want to push yourself physically, that's a challenge. If you want to take a few days off, maybe it'll be more mentally hard to be out there for longer. And I don't mean to scare you with all this difficulty talk. To change things up a bit, one thing I was surprised about was I got tired of pizza. It's such an easy, filling meal to pick up when you're in town. You can pack out the leftovers. It's so good, so delicious every time. But towards the end, I was like, I really hope no one else mentions pizza while we're in town. I'm not going to tell you where it is because I think it'll be more fun for you if you just find out, but there's a section of trail. You know how the trail maintenance, meaning like the clearing of the trail, the signs, the shelters, all that is taken care of by different clubs along the length of the trail. Well, there's one that must have like an architect or a few architects in the group because there was this one section of trail where all the shelters were like very recently built, log cabin-esque, windows, benches, like they were so cool. But I'm gonna leave where it is. That's a secret. I was a big fan of AT documentaries and AT culture and hearing about trampolines, but in the back of my mind I was like, it can't be just a magical group that forms and goes the whole way together and no one ever doesn't get along, which was true. In reality, I don't want to say drama because that makes it sound like, you know, like high school drama, like it doesn't really matter. But there were disagreements. There were people that didn't get along. A lot of people hiked with 2 or more groups throughout the trail because let's say you get going with one group, but then people want to go different paces. A lot of people get off trail. Then later on, you might join up with another group. On the flip side of that, while there is some not getting alongness, there are people that really do get along, and there are people that start dating more than I was expecting. That was a really big surprise to me, including me, which was the biggest surprise of all. So moving on, a piece of advice I heard was that it gets more remote the more north you go. Like the south, you start out with Neal's Gap, mountains crossings, and then you get to the NOC and there's a gear shop right there. Well, while you get up, there's not going to be as many services while you get up there. There's not going to be, in addition to services, like road crossings and places to stop and get food too. I don't think it was really true, though, as a general rule, the more north you go, because like New Jersey and New York, deli blazing. There's plenty of time you just walk down the road and go get a sandwich. The main parts you need to look out for being remote is in the whites, like I said before, because I guess I didn't say that exactly. But anyway, the whites are very different. You're so high up in the mountains, there's fewer road crossings. Because who builds a road over a mountain? And also Maine. It's almost like the Alaska of the lower 48. Obviously not exactly, but it's just so much more forest and less cities, which was a beautiful thing to see, definitely. It just made it hard to get groceries. Also, I want to tell you a little heads up about trail magic. I can't speak for anyone, for myself, obviously, but there were so many opportunities to get trail magic. If you don't know, trail magic is just a very kind person wants to give out free food or free drinks or something like that, usually at a road crossing, could also just be on trail or in a parking lot or something. But that happens so much that I noticed anytime I saw a person at a road or a parking lot, I was like, oh my gosh, is that trail magic? I remember one time, this was before I got to Damascus, Virginia. There was a road crossing, and there were these 2 guys sitting on a bucket, and I was hiking with someone, and I said to them, oh, look, trail magic. And then as we got closer, I was like, I don't know, maybe we're just spoiled. And then when I got up there, I was like, hey, y'all, what are you guys up to today? Being like, please give us trail magic. And they were like, oh, we're about to head out fishing. And I was like, oh, okay, have a nice time. Really, I don't mean to be the person that's all like, gimme, gimme, gimme. You know, like, I do not mean to be greedy at all. It's just when you get used to something happening and then it looks like it's going to happen, but then it's a different situation, it's a bit of a bummer. Also, I was kind of surprised that from about Pennsylvania to maybe New Hampshire, maybe Vermont, but there was like a drought of hostels. You know, there were still plenty of hotels to stay in, but once I got past the free church hostels in Pennsylvania, I don't remember staying at another hostel for a really long time. And if you're like, well, why does that matter? It's just more of a place to connect with other hikers. You know, at a hotel, there's no common area where you can sit around and talk to people that are also on trail. Really, one of my favorite parts of the trail was the communal social aspect. So maybe to you that won't matter, but for me, I was like, where did all the hostels go? I think it's just because, obviously, a lot of people start out in the south, so there's a lot of them down there. Tobos start out in Maine, so there was plenty of hostels up there, and I think there's just, maybe that section is where they get the least amount of people, either northbound or southbound. Another thing I wasn't expecting was that the AT is an industry. Of course, you have the backpacking industry, the outdoors industry, but there's also a specific, business push for hostels and shuttles and services to hikers on the trail. And I was kind of like, I don't know, it felt a little commercialized to me. Like, a lot of people use the maps on the app far out. I think it's such a good tool. I'm definitely not unrecommending them, but the first map in their set of maps ends at Standing Bear, which is not a road crossing or a landmark, it's a hostel. So I was kind of like, I wonder if they did that on purpose so that people would naturally think, oh, we're done with this map, we deserve a night off, let's go to this hostel right here. Speaking of the AT industry, there are people who are trail angels that do trail magic like I talked about before, and there are people whose business is to support hikers. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's made super clear to the hikers in the beginning if a person is doing something for them just to be nice or because this is how they support themselves. I don't think anything's wrong with helping hikers, and that's your line of work. We all have to make money somehow. But for example, I had a really bad experience. Well, it wasn't terrible, but just an uncomfortable experience. I think this was in Southern Virginia. The group I was with took a shuttle to town. There were 2 trips of people because there were 6 of us, and as soon as we got our food at the restaurant, like we were just about to dig in and feast, and our shuttle driver comes in and is like, are you all ready to go? Which is hard because I understand his point of view, but also it was getting to a point in the trail where getting to town and getting that restaurant food or whatever morale boost you can was really, really important. If we had set a pickup time, he could go do whatever he needed to do, go shuttle other people, and we would just be waiting there. He would be ready at the same time. That same trip, there was kind of a pay weirdness. I don't even remember the specifics, but he ended up asking for more than we thought it would be in the beginning, and then it just got rough because I don't want to give him the short end of the stick, but I don't want us to get the short end of the stick either. And it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, but of course I don't want to scare you. Anyone that wants to work with hikers, even if it is to support themselves, does so because they want to support hikers' mission in general, you know? They smell bad, you have to be really patient because their schedule always changes, so I'm sure that everyone has good intentions. There was also one time at a hostel where I saw a poster from the Association of Long Distance Hikers that said something like, if someone gives you a ride, give them gas money. If someone gives you food, pay them for their time. My impression of trail angels were that they were doing this completely for free. According to that poster, some of them are expecting a gift in return, maybe. It's the day after I filmed all that, and I wanted to make an addendum because 99% of the time, you're gonna know if you're dealing with someone offering you something or a business. I was just really overthinking yesterday. I think where there might be some gray area is hitchhiking, because you are asking people, please give me a ride to town, and you might want to offer, can I give you some gas money? Just a nice thing to do. The poster I saw in the hostel, I really don't know where they came from. I looked up the Appalachian Long Distance Hikers Association. The name of the group I was trying to remember before. They didn't have anything like that. Trail Magic receiving rules on their website. I googled generally and no one said anything like that. So I don't know, maybe it was written before Trail Magic was defined as people just giving back to the community, offering things for free. Yeah, I don't know where they were coming from with that. If you're a trail angel or if you're a trail business, I'd really like to hear your take on this. What of what I've said sounds right, sounds wrong. If you have any questions or things to add on, please put them in the comments. I also have a playlist of AT preparation videos. If you're headed out this year, I would definitely check those out, especially the budget one and the miles one, because I really wish I would have had something like that. Thank you so much for watching this. I really hope it was helpful. Please be safe and have a wonderful time.